I'll tell you what, it is not a great week to be a corporate giant. MTN is staring down a US grand jury over its alleged past dealings with the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. South Africa's biggest banks are hauled back to the Constitutional Court in a rand rigging saga. An Anglo-American 70 billion rand coal deal just went up in smoke, literally. And we have a couple other stories this morning that are going to blow your mind, so best you lock in. My friends, if you're enjoying the show, be sure to hit like and subscribe below. And with all that out the way, let's get into it. So Africa's biggest telecom, MTN, is back under the microscope, this time in the US. You see, the company has confirmed that America's Department of Justice has launched a grand jury investigation into its past operations in Iran and Afghanistan. And so, just so you understand, a grand jury isn't a trial, it's a legal body that decides whether there's enough evidence to file criminal charges. Now, MTN says it's not accused of any wrongdoing and is cooperating voluntarily, but the probe covers some of its most controversial history. So the spotlight here falls on two controversies. So in Afghanistan, MTN is accused of paying protection money to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda to safeguard its Afghan operations. These claims are now at the heart of lawsuits from US soldiers' families. Then in Iran, rival Turkcell claims that MTN only secured its 49% stake in Irancell by using bribes and political influence back in 2006. Now, MTN rejects both set of claims and points to an earlier independent inquiry that found no proof of corruption. Still though, the market took a fright. MTN shares slumped as much as 10% on Monday, wiping out about 30 billion rand in value before closing about 8% lower. And now that drop overshadowed otherwise strong interim results, which underlines just how much legal and geopolitical risk still weighs on the group's future. South Africa's top court is back in the spotlight this week, and it's not about politics, but about the price of money itself. So the Constitutional Court is hearing arguments in this decade-long rand-rigging scandal where more than 20 local and global banks are accused of fixing the rand-dollar exchange rate between 2007 and 2013. And so this is how they did it. So their traders would allegedly use chat rooms with names like ZAR Domination to coordinate when to buy or sell. They would post fake quotes and even withhold trades, nudging the rand's value that made them billions while leaving South Africans paying more for fuel, food, and imports. So the Competition Commission says that this manipulation caused permanent structural damage to the rand, skewing trillions in trade flows, raising the cost of debt and everyday goods. Banks, however, argue that this case is vague, speculative, and in many cases, outside South Africa's jurisdiction. Now, it's important to note here that the Constitutional Court isn't ruling on guilt or innocence. It's deciding whether the Competition Commission can appeal last year's judgment that cleared most of the banks. So if the judges say no, the case ends. But if they say yes, the Competition Commission can appeal the ruling, which would open up the door to one of the biggest financial trials in South Africa's history. And if you thought the banking and telecoms giants were under pressure, the mining conglomerates aren't faring much better. Anglo American has just watched a 70 billion rand deal go up in smoke, literally. So the company had lined up US coal producer Peabody to buy its Australian steelmaking coal mines, a key step in Anglo's plans to slim down and focus on copper and iron ore. But after a fire shut down operations at Moromba North Mine, Peabody walked away, claiming that the incident was a material adverse change that essentially gave them an escape clause. So Anglo insists that the fire didn't fundamentally damage the mine and says that it will drag Peabody to arbitration for wrongful termination. Now, either way, the collapse is a major setback. Coal was supposed to be the easiest division to sell, and now investors are questioning whether Anglo can find another buyer, or if its radical restructuring plan is starting to wobble. And before we go on to our Bagel Bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, 2 teenagers have been arrested for the attempted hijacking of Police Portfolio Committee Chair Ian Cameron, as well as 2 other DA colleagues, outside the Philippine Police Academy. Talk about a place to do it. A third suspect is being hunted down with charges including attempted murder. Namibia's Sonop Farming says that South Africa unlawfully pulled its tomato import permit, leaving thousands of tons at risk of rotting. Now, the company has gone to court warning of 100 million rand in losses and hundreds of jobs on the line. And Ford has recalled over 20,000 Rangers, Everest, and Transit customers customs in South Africa for faulty entertainment systems that freeze and disrupt rear-view cameras. Now, smaller batches of EcoSports, Mustangs, and Ranger models face separate safety fixes too. And on to our Bagel Bite of the day. If you're not that technical, good luck. The question is, in computing, what does HTTP stand for? Is it A, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, B, High-Tech Transmission Program, or C, Hyperlink Transport Package? Bonus points if you know the difference between HTTP and HTTPS. Good luck. And on to our wildcard section. Most South Africans have had Mrs. H.S. Ball's chutney on their plate at some point, but very few know how the sweet staple went from her family kitchen in Cape Town to cupboards across the world. And so the story begins in the early 1900s with Amelia Ball, who inherited her mother's chutney recipe and started bottling it at home. By 1914, jars were being sold at church bazaars, and before long, her husband, Herbert Saddleton Ball, the HS on the label, turned it into a business. And from there, the myths multiply. I mean, one tale credits the recipe to a shipwrecked ship's cook who landed on South African shores in the 1850s. Another insists it was simply an old family recipe perfected in fishhook. What is clear, though, is that by the 1950s, production scaled up, exports were heading to Britain, and a South African icon was born. And big it is. I mean, a couple of years back, they noted how more than 2 million bottles a year were rolling off the production line. So that's about 8,000 bottles a day, with jars now exported everywhere from the UK to New Zealand. And as for that Bagel Bite, the answer is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. So HTTP is the foundation of data communication on the web. It's the set of rules that your browser and a website uses to talk to one another. But here's the kicker, it's not secure by default. That's why you'll often see HTTPS instead, with the S standing for secure, meaning that the data is encrypted. So today, more than 95% of websites globally run on HTTPS, making that little padlock in your browser one of the simplest but most important safeguards in the digital world. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in all the way until the end. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it together. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the final Daily Bagel show of the week. It's going to be a goodie. I'll catch you guys all then. Cheers.